to episode 47. This is The Bar is Ankle High, and I'm Katie.
I'm Garrett.
And we're continuing our conversation with Sarah Spellman, who was our special guest last week. We're continuing our conversation on the neurodivergent experience in queer spaces and the overlap between those two worlds. So at some point, we'll be picking up that conversation. So here we go. Oh, wait, don't yet. Because we are in July now, you can vote to nominate us for a People's Choice Podcast Award. So the link to do that is in the show notes for this episode, but also is on our Instagram page at The Bar is Ankle High. And so please go do that and nominate us. We're in the categories for comedy and health. So nominate us, early, often. Get your friends to nominate us because we want to win a trophy because it's important for no other reason than bragging rights, basically.
Yeah, we just want to dunk on people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So vote for us so we can
mostly
have an emotional dysregulation reaction to it.
Yeah, then Garrett will do the high kicks. It's gonna be great.
No promises though. I really can't get my leg very high right now. I mean, just like standing up off the couch is a workout.
Well, it'll be when we find out whether we win or not. It'll be in September because that's when the awards are. So
I definitely won't be high kicking in September. I can tell you. I'll do like a good like fist pump from the couch.
Okay. What if you make the baby do a high kick?
Yeah, I can do that. Okay. I will promise.
Baby
that.
High kicks.
She's been doing them the whole time we've been recording, so it's a couple times I had to like keep myself from like exclaiming because she just gets really carried away with these. I was like,
okay, so now we can pick up the episode.
Yeah. It's almost like when you have three neurotypical people recording something that things get off track.
I like that you described us as neurotypical.
Did I?
Yes.
That's not what I meant.
And I wasn't even paying attention. I was just like, yeah. That tracks.
Oh, my Lord. Neuro.
If Garrett's saying that, it must be true.
It's true. Yeah, she's our auditor. So
the pregnancy brain is intense. Neurodivergent people.
Not anymore. You cured us. Good job.
Did I mention that I gave everybody essential oils at the beginning of the episode? All I could think was like, man, middle school boys, even now, I hear middle school boys yelling as a grown adult, and it's like triggering for me. Because all I can think about is, man, that is when I got bullied the worst. I think middle school boys are complete sociopaths.
Yes.
I am so relieved that we're having a girl because I don't know what I would do dealing with someone I was supposed to love that was a middle school boy. But there is just like something about middle school boys that even now I'm like, motherfuckers. Every time I see them.
Yeah.
Because they really were just like the meanest.
Yeah, just complete shitbags. And then what was even worse is that when they grew up into high school and then just became like 6'4", like complete douchebags.
Still smelly.
Yeah.
Still smelly, still using body axe spray.
Yeah.
Like just still can't leave that stuff behind.
I wonder if we can make boys start to like develop their personalities in middle school the way like AFAB individuals do. And then they'll be less horrible, at least by the time high school rolls around.
I feel like the bullying was probably half of where my personality came from.
So actually where all of my humor comes from. I'm actually only funny because I used to get bullied a lot. So I've just used getting people to laugh as like a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
That's definitely one of my greatest coping skills. If I can just turn a room around and just get them laughing, right back on top. It's like little doses of dopamine.
The two of us starting a podcast where we just laugh at each other. So, yep.
Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
Turns out it came from the trauma.
And yeah, seriously though, like that's how me and my friends are funny. It's just trauma bonding and laughing about it, basically.
Yeah, like ADHD, bullying, all those things.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then so actually like a really interesting word that I came across during my research, it's called NEUROQUEER. It was coined by Dr. Nick Walker, Athena Lynn, Michaels Dillon, and
Is that one person's name?
no, it's multiple people. Sorry, it's only one doctor though.
Okay.
I'm reading this off a slide that I have on my phone. And
Sorry.
another person.
Like, holy hell, the name just keeps going.
There were commas in there, but just very tiny ones.
Sorry.
And so it was originally developed as a verb, but it's also an adjective and also like an identity that people can relate to on all levels. So basically, neuroqueer as a noun is basically the practicing of subverting or defying neuronormality and heteronormality at the same time.
Oh, so it's the overlap in the Venn diagram.
It is the over. So one of the symbols that they use is an infinity sign because these things are so intertwined with each other. But then it's also associated with the practice of things that are doing both those things. So like neuroqueer literature, neuroqueer art, et cetera, et cetera. But then also the individual who identifies as basically your existence is defying the normal heteronormative and neurotypical worlds, and you're just here existing. And I've asked a couple of my friends that are like very well versed in like queer research and gender studies and things like that. And did I say the year? Since like 2004, that's 2014 is when that word was basically originally coined. And I feel like the more I explained it to a lot of the people that I was talking to about this episode was like, that totally makes sense. And so it's basically one quote that I have is, queer and trans people are taught to hide and doubt ourselves in 1,000 different ways as we grow up. Neurotypical or not, we all learn the art of masking. And I'm like, that's so true because, you know, people that don't align with their assigned sex at birth, you are essentially masking and you are basically taught all of the same social norms and expectations. But at some point you basically realize like, that's actually not for me. That's not the life I want to live. And that's basically where like self-acceptance grows and stems from, is realizing, oh, I can break these gender norms. I can break these heteronormative expectations that I have. And I feel like it also ties into like the queer timeline versus like the heteronormative timeline. Like most of my friends, like they're married, they're starting their family planning options. There's years ahead of me in so many ways, but it took me a long time to realize my heterosexual friends are on a different timeline than me and my queer friends. While they were, you know, in high school falling in love with like their high school sweethearts or, you know, dating around looking for that one, I'm living my best life trying to figure out who I am. And queer people spend so much extra time in like teenage years into their 20s, sometimes, you know, even into like their 30s or 40s, depending on where they're at in life, and never making that connection of just like, oh, I don't have to live on this heteronormative timeline. I have to figure myself out. I need to work on myself so I can be the best person I can be in my next relationship. And like that's just like, to me, like that is just like one of like the most irritating part about having ADHD and being queer. It's because like you almost feel like a failure because you're not living up to these heteronormative standards, where like those standards aren't made for me. Those weren't designed for me. I like to say like I'm a cosmic being made up of a whole bunch of stuff that's from outer space, and there's only one person that's like me. And I don't have to follow these guidelines that are basically put into place to enforce these gender roles and heteronormative lifestyles. No offense, Katie.
That's fine.
But
part of the patriarchy.
It's
Yeah.
true though, because I mean I have a cousin who's he's getting married in P-Town in September to his fiance, but they've been together for like 10 years. And like I've done this where I was like, okay, but like when are you guys getting married? And he was like, well, and my cousin was like, well, there's really no like it's not the same because
Yeah.
like we don't have to worry, like we just pay a lady to have a kid for us. Like it doesn't matter.
Yeah. And
And
so
I was like, okay, well, good point. Like I guess like there's no reason, and they own property together, but for until what 2012 when Oberfeld was law, then you know like gay marriage wasn't allowed nationwide, so
Yeah.
like gay couples were just buying property together as joint tenants rather than as husband or spouse.
Yeah.
So it's just always been that way, that you buy the house when you want, like if the option comes around, then you do it. It's not whereas like I look at it as, well, it's silly for me to buy a house until before I'm married, because legally, like of course that's how I'm going to look at it, but like there's way more to go through if something happens to my partner and we don't own that as tenants by the entirety. Whereas if tenants by the entirety, if they pass, I don't have to worry about probating the house. I don't have to worry about their will and whether the house was included and what they did with it and what they did with their share. And did it pass to me, or did it pass to their family who hates me because they hate that their family member is LGBT. And so there's different, the considerations that have been there for generations for queer people are things that you all kind of just live with. And it's like, well, it's irrelevant. And even to the extent that depending on where you live as a queer person, you may not even have the option soon, a lot of places, to even have a surrogate or to adopt. So it's sort of that thing of like, well, then who gives a shit? Like if we get married now or we get married when we're in our 40s, like it's not about, quote unquote, having a family, because you're not going to let us do that because, that's
and
what
also
conservatives
so
want.
similar to ADHD, where you're finding creative workarounds
Mm-hmm.
to accomplish the things you want to accomplish, but just not with the same path as, say, a heteronormative or neurotypical person.
Another instance was that another study had also showed that anxiety and depression were also higher in the LGBT community versus their cisgender and heterosexual counterparts. Like, yes, we are all just giant balls of anxiety because the world is a constant dumpster fire where, like, I don't know if I'd have a problem if I were to go to visit one of those flyover states that are, constantly screaming homophobic things from their state chambers and their state level government. It's just like, I don't want to spend my hard-earned tax money and like all of my money in a state where, like, if me and my partner were to go and, like, God forbid, have to go to a hospital, would they allow her to visit me in my hospital room? Would they recognize her as my partner, as also like literally like domestic partnership? I put her on my insurance during the pandemic because I have great insurance. And I was like, we'll just do this paperwork and I don't want to have to worry about you not being able to see a doctor. Like, I'll file whatever paperwork we need, whatever. And so, but that might not be recognized in some other states. And like, that's terrifying. Like, I feel so bad for the kids that are stuck in these horrific things. And they're basically like re-watching, like, Don't Ask, Don't Tell be hashed out on a state by state level in so many places that it's just like people that are like my age and like, millennial age is basically like, we already lived through this. Why are we rehashing this? Why are you still just trying to deny the existence of these people? And not only just like using your religion to justify it, which, like, please keep that to yourselves and like exclusively on Friday through Sunday. I don't really want to hear about it. But like, if that's something that you like to do, good for you. I'm not here to stop you. Just keep it in your own private spaces, And it's one of those things where it just like constantly comes up. as an issue, and it's just let these people exist. Why they're not bothering you? Like, there are more religious leaders across the US that have literally done more damage than like your average queer person in like your everyday American town.
That's what got me about
absolutely.
the bathroom bills. I was like, you know who's made me feel uncomfortable more than any other group? Men. You know who has not made me feel uncomfortable? Trans people in any capacity, because I'm just like not paying attention. How very
Yeah,
ADHD
mostly that.
and I'm just like doing my thing and not paying attention to what's happening around me. But men have consistently made me feel fearful or uncomfortable or unsafe.
Or ashamed for, like,
Yes.
I feel like a piece of meat. And
Yes.
you know, like, since I remember, like, I mean, since I was 10, you know, we'd walk to the ice cream store down the street from my house, and we would get catcalled by cars driving by as a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
Like, no way. That is nasty.
Me and my friends in our Catholic school uniforms walking home after school, and guys honking their horn and yelling out their window. Bro, I'm in a Catholic school uniform. Odds are I'm under the age of 18.
I'm a
like,
child.
Take your odds with that, whether I'm like, you know, you caught me like the end of the school year and my birthday is between like January and June and I happen to be 18, but odds are you're probably honking your car at a minor.
Regardless, you're targeting a child who is still in elementary school.
Do you mean jailbait? Is that the term we're
yeah,
like?
Yeah, basically. And so like there are just like other moments like that also where like for one instance, when New York City passed the bathroom bill before it was like statewide, a lady came into my office complaining about this. And I'm just sitting there like minding my own business. I'm like, don't get into it. Don't get into it. She's not worth it. She's not worth raising your blood pressure to just yell and scream till you're blue in the face. And she's still not going to get it.
Mm-hmm.
But my manager at the time was just like, when's the last time you used the bathroom in like Penn Station? She was like, oh, I would never, like literally like clenching her pearls. Oh, I would never do that. And he looked at her and was like, okay, so then this bill doesn't really affect you if you're not using these public restrooms. So your outrage is just because you're upset that people are different. And he's like, I hate to be the one to break this to you, but if you grew up in New York City and have ever been throughout the borough of Manhattan, you've seen these people and you've just let it slide right off your back. So
you
why
sit
is
on
it
the
a problem
same
now?
seat on a subway as somebody who's trans and didn't know.
Yeah.
And
didn't
you
even
didn't
know.
catch it. So
Yeah.
Crazy.
That's good. Yeah.
And so it's moments like that where people will just choose to be ignorant and hateful, where like, again, these situations have no impact on your life. So like, why do you care so much? Who hurt you that you are this upset about something that has no impact on your life?
My parents hit me and I'm fine. It's that group.
Yeah. I lived through the Great Depression and all these people need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps.
Nothing
and get
happened
back
to me.
work.
Also, I feel like it's fair to ask those people who are upset about bathroom bills, or gender neutral bathrooms or family bathrooms, which is the same fucking thing.
Yep.
You know, how they use in detail a public restroom, because if they're there like helicoptering while they pee, then I would agree.
You know what? Some people do the things I have seen in public restrooms.
But it's the kind of thing where it's like, no, person who's upset that a person needs to use the bathroom, you tell me what you do in the bathroom, and then we'll walk back and see whether or not, based on your behavior, you seem like you're afraid that other people are going to be doing that too. Because if you just like, I mean, as a woman, like if I just like dropped trow and like waddled across the floor just leaking pee everywhere, and that's how I used a public restroom because there's a drain in the floor, and your concern was that somebody with different genitals would also be doing that, then okay, I understand why you're concerned. However, let's go back to square one and learn how to use a potty.
I love Katie's visuals that she gives. It's just one of my favorite things.
So descriptive.
Every time.
But it's just one of those things where it's like, I don't know the last time you've been in a public restroom, you know, sir or madam, but like there's stalls. Like, and any trans person, I'm sure, would rather go in the stall than use a urinal trough or whatever. Like,
nothing more.
And it's
vile
not
to
like
me.
there's any option like that in a women's room. Like, it's just stalls. Just use this
Yeah.
fucking stall. It's
Yeah.
nobody's business. And if maybe we could just get some bathroom stalls like they have in England, where there isn't
the gap.
enough room for a toddler to come under the door, then we wouldn't have to worry.
Yeah.
Our building specifically has like a giant gap around all of the, and if you hang something, the cleaning people will take it down. It's like, I just don't want to make eye contact through this weird gap that doesn't need to be there.
Somebody put something in one of the stalls that's like, it's like a seam that you would put on flooring, like between rooms.
Yeah.
But it's like a rubber thing in one of the handicap accessible stalls because the gap is so big. It's like a solid 1.5 inches.
Yeah, it's gigantic.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you put your eye up to that, you're going to, look at what
you're going to see Katie helicoptering, and nobody wants to see that.
I just do a handstand and then I spin around like I'm breakdancing.
Like a sprinkler.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Obviously. How else do people use the bathroom?
It's the only way to evenly distribute my precious insides.
Do you remember those sprinklers when we were kids, and it was like, it had like a stake at the bottom and a flower,
and it would
fall
all over. Yeah.
Like that.
That's what boys do, right? With their wieners.
I guess. Yeah. I don't know. I've never had a wiener.
Me neither.
But it's one of those things though, also, like, so I definitely dress more on like the masculine side of the spectrum. And so there are definitely times where like we'll be at like a rest stop off like the New York State Highway, right? And literally I'll have like my hair up in my hat, dressed however which way. And the looks that I get from women either coming in and out of the bathroom, the very confused looks, and I'm like, I'm just trying to pee. Like, please just let me get in and out of this bathroom. I hate these bathrooms to begin with. I don't need your uncomfortable stares as I'm walking in or out. Like, I'm wearing a backwards hat. Get over yourself.
Since you work for the government, could you make it so that they stop using BO scented cleaner in those restrooms? Because that's the only way I think that they're doing it. They're like wringing out like construction workers' t-shirts at the end of the day and like putting that scent into the bottles.
Yeah. I'll add that right underneath getting rid of the Chik-Fil-A restaurants in the New York State rest stops, because like, who needs Chik-Fil-A? Honestly, they're not even open on Sundays. Like, let's get a store in there that will be open 7 days a week and not provide money to anti-LGBTQ campaigns. Just gonna throw that out there.
Right.
But,
yeah. Or make you pray with them.
Yeah. Yeah. All of the above.
Have a blessed day.
Ew, is that what they say?
Don't tell me what to do.
No, they don't.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's what I've heard. I've never gone to one, but
I've also never gone. I mean, as a vegetarian, there's just really never been a reason to go to Chik-Fil-A.
I just think of them as being in the Orlando airport. Like, that was like my first real ever time seeing one in real life. And then I was just like, I'm from New York. We have Popeyes. There's nothing that's in your chicken sandwich that is going to undo my love for Popeyes. Like, no, there's no way.
My first experience with a Chick-fil-A in college, I was dating a guy who was stationed at Fort Bragg in North Carolina. And I went to visit him and we're driving around with his friends. And one of his friends was like, oh, there's a Chick-fil-A, as you people up north call it. And I like looked at it and I was like, yeah, Chick-fil-A. And the guy I was dating at the time was like, yeah, that's what it's called. And then the friend said something like, it's Chick-fil-A. And I was like, oh my God, the A is a separate word. Like, I did not get it at all. And I was like, filet. Oh my God.
Hey, did you guys know that you spelled that wrong?
I mean, seriously, let's speak of like a neurodivergent realization. Like, like, oh, this super obvious thing. Like,
oh, no, missed that.
You spelled it like you're uneducated. Oh.
And also very Katie to be like, that's not how you would say that. Idiot.
Right. Well, I was like, what's Chick-fil-A? And they were like,
Yeah,
It's Chick-Fil-A.
Oh, that's great, Katie. That's
yep,
great.
Yep. Yeah, again, like super confident. You're dumb. As I say the most unhinged, stupid thing. I stand by
it's
it.
okay. Yeah. We're actually just better than most people, so
Yeah.
I have no argument here. I'm right on board. Another correlation between gender identity exploration and executive functioning was another thing that I came across in my notes, which is, and I was like, oh, well, I have high executive functioning, so that's not a problem for me. And then I read some of these things and I'm like, oh, yeah.
Welcome to the bar's ankle high.
Yeah, that tracks. So it's basically like impulse control, emotional deregulation, organizing, planning, and prioritizing, and focus. So when I was looking at the stuff that was listed under this, part of it was that for people that are AFAB, you're expected to basically get up, start your day, know how to do a full face of makeup, do your hair, look prim and proper, and live up to that expectations every single day. I was never that person. Even like I could just about get some eyeliner on my face. Like that's about as far as that goes. And it's one of those things where, again, these heteronormative things are just drilled into you from the get-go of like, no, you have to dress and act this certain way. And if you're not meeting those standards, no man is ever going to love you, basically. Like those are the standards that are so like drilled into your head. And it's basically, like one of the quotes that I have is, a young girl is much more likely to be socialized to sit still and be quiet and respectful, while young boys are more likely to be allowed to run around and roughhouse. And in a lot of times that this can lead to a misdiagnosis or just completely overlooked, because girls can't have that because they can't be hyperactive, and young boys never present as inattentive, which I thought that was a pretty hot take, where it's just like, you're right. Like, that's part of the reason why girls don't get diagnosed with ADHD at some points, because they don't check that box of being the hyperactive,
Right.
normal ADHD that they see. But that's mostly just because we only do research on men and ADHD and boys. And it's there was a 2014 study that was on a gender variance in living people with either autism or ADHD. And participants with ADHD were 6.64 times more likely to express a gender variance than their counterparts.
Wow.
Right?
That's significant.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then there was another study. This one, it only has 20 different people in it. But out of the study sample of 20 cases with gender dysphoria, and they were aged 5 to 17, a lot of them did have ADHD as a diagnosis.
That's
Wow.
wild. And I know, like, I was definitely like a daydreamer kid. And not, I mean, fidgety, but not like really hyperactive as a kid. And there were definitely boys in my class that were diagnosed with ADHD. That's because they were like, you know, ants in their pants, like literally could not sit still and a million miles an hour all the time. Whereas I could literally sit there and just like stare at the wall and daydream for an hour at a shot.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that this an ADHD advocate and certified sex educator, Kate Osborne, who also has ADHD, wanted to point out that ADHD doesn't cause someone to question their gender identity or experience gender dysphoria. Rather, individuals with neurodivergence are predisposed to reject the rigidity of gender expectations placed on them by society.
Huh.
Which, like, makes sense in a way that, like, I've never been able to do a full face of makeup, and on some levels, just because I don't have the patience, time, nor energy to, one, learn how to do those things, but to also maintain those daily standards.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But then I've always just rejected the idea of what's expected of me as somebody who's AFAB, essentially. Was that because my brain can already think outside the box. I've been thinking outside the box long before these. Keep hitting my mic.
Scared me.
I know, sorry. I don't know what that sounds like on your end. But so they basically, like, because we're already so ready to think outside the box, that when it comes to how I present, how I see myself, it's a little bit easier when you're already outside of the box than when you're trying to break out of the box.
Mm-hmm.
That's very true. And I mean, you think about too, you know, the expectations of women to, especially like in a more formal work setting, I would say, than public sector, but, you know, coming in with hair done, full face of makeup, nails done, and having to do that every morning before starting your day. And then you see men that just like get out of bed and maybe take a shower and throw on some basic clothes, and there's no accessorizing, there's no makeup,
Mhm.
there's no really hair being done, nails being done. The time tax that goes with that.
Mm-hmm.
I know I've personally never been equipped to do that in the morning. So
I used to have to. I mean, when I was in private
Mhm.
sector, like, I did my makeup every day. Thankfully, I have curly hair, so I could wear it curly, and get away with that as, you know, being done. But yeah, no, that really dictated like my personal style. Like, I was wearing a ton of dresses because you can just throw on a dress and be done. Like, there's
Mhm.
no pants, shirt, shoes, belt, you know, any of that other shit. I can just do, you know, a dress and then my one black blazer that I wear with everything, which I still do. I have a single blazer that I keep at my desk at work, and I wear, it's navy blue, and I just, when I have court, I know that I wear
I have one of those at work too. I just have I'm like, a navy one will go with almost all of my outfits. I'll just throw that in the closet at work.
Yep. And except when I wear khaki pants with it, I feel like I'm giving museum tours.
She also looks like she's giving museum tours, in fairness, when she wears that. Like, I want to hand you a name tag when you have that
Yes.
on.
Yeah. It's very night at the museum for me.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, no, it's true. I mean, I definitely used to do that. And I did that when I first started working in the public sector as well. And then I just kind of like stopped because who gives a shit? But
Yeah, first of all, no one else is doing
especially when I was never going to court. Like, and that was really the reason that I would dress up at, you know, in private sectors, because I was going to court and there was a chance that I'd be called in to go to court to cover for somebody at the last minute. And so there were times where there's only one time that I showed up to work and then got the alert on my Outlook that I had to be in court in 15 minutes.
it.
And like, again, thank God I was wearing a dress and could like pull that off as court attire, because it's that kind of thing where I was like, you know, it's that you know, as I think as neurodivergent people, we kind of build our wardrobes around like what we know will work for us most of the time. So what works for me is something that is simple and easy to wash, especially like I cannot be bothered with dry cleaning bullshit.
Nope.
But it takes a long time to figure it out, and more time than it takes for neurotypical people to figure it out, certainly, because they don't have to go through that trial and error bullshit that we do.
Oh, I still try to pick out my outfit the night before work, because I'm like, you'll be so less stressed out in the morning if you already know what shirt, pants, belt combo that you're going to have going on. Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like, again, like working around an already annoying system to just make future me have an easier life.
I can't
that's my whole
possibly
existence.
I can't possibly predict what future me will want to wear. Every time I've tried that, it has changed in the morning. So it's been like useless.
Oh, but the only real difference is like what's the button-up shirt made out of? Like, am I going just regular polo, or am I gonna do like a full button? Am I just gonna be like 2 buttons deep for part of my day, you know? Or like just never going, you know, maybe if I get 8 hours of sleep, maybe that's when I can achieve that as a
Yeah, have you tried just going to bed earlier and
Yep,
having your
doesn't
phone with
work.
me in bed?
What about getting a planner? Have you considered getting a planner? Like that might fix
They have apps for that now too,
everything.
don't you know? You know, you could just set a reminder on your phone. Thanks, never thought of that.
Yeah, you know what else I can do? I can turn off that reminder. So
Can and will.
joke's on you.
Most of those things actually have a snooze button, so
Yeah.
we'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah. You don't know what I'm capable of.
No, I do survive in neutrals. And no sooner did I build a ADHD proof wardrobe, now none of those items fit. So I'm living out of laundry baskets again. I finally got everything fixed. I was like, no more laundry baskets for me. I am back exclusively in laundry baskets and only buy black maternity clothes. So I cannot decipher what item I'm looking at any given time. Anyway.
That's gotta be a fun
Helpful.
guessing game.
It's, mornings are
You
a
should
little stressful.
just write on like the tags of them. If any of them have tags, that way if you see a tag first, you can just be like, oh, shirt.
I should just organize them. That would also be
No. That you're
I mean, you've
The
only
bar's
got
only
like,
ankle high.
yeah, you've got, 6 more weeks of work. Why do all that now?
Yeah,
It's not going to matter if you're just,
That's true.
free balling it in a couple weeks.
not worth it.
You could just wear a dress where your tits come out and then you walk into a wall like
Katie, at work on Friday?
Thursday.
I'm in the hallway having a conversation on the phone. She gets off the elevator. I was like, oh, hey. She's like, hey, look, this is the dress I was telling you about that's going to be really good for nursing. And pulls the top part of the dress up because it's just like full access. And she had a tank top underneath, but it's like directly in front of the security camera. So the security camera is like
which I didn't
me
notice and or realize.
Watch her flash me. We both start laughing. She turns around and walks right into a doorway. Like just
like the frame of the door. I smashed my face into.
Yes.
I smashed my whole shoulder into a door frame at work because I took the corner a little too tight and my coworker was like, yeah, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, I'm fine. The door frame was in my way. I'm fine, you know, like
this doorway that I walk through 1,000 times a day.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I clearly moved between the last time I walked through here.
Yep. It's rude.
Yeah, so it's things like that where even just like dress codes. I personally think most dress codes, they're unconstitutional because how are you going to gender a piece of clothing? And then how are you also going to enforce these things when like more times than not, if you actually like look at dress codes, they're more targeting women and regulating what they are supposed to be wearing versus like a man can just show up in any run-of-the-mill suit regardless of how many other men have the exact ugly shade of blue suit in the room also. And
we're also targeting immigrants and people from different cultures because what we would consider business casual, somebody from Bangladesh can show up in Bangladeshi traditional garb and that's considered a business casual or even a business formal outfit. But like, to a bigot, it's like, well, aren't you just in pajamas?
Yeah.
So
did you really have to wear that?
And they're really just mad because
are you just shoving your
culture
down my throat? Yeah.
Don't be mad because you have a waistband.
Right. Exactly.
I'm sorry, you want me to be inclusive to everybody? You're asking for too much now. Like, maybe if you just toned it down a little bit, it would be easier.
Right. Yeah.
So you see that on like both sides. So like you get that on like the ADHD level where people are like, can you just take a fucking chill pill? And I'm like, I wish I could. However,
it's prescription.
Like but again, it's past 5 o'clock. So like this episode could really just go off the rails from here on out because it's after 5. So like that's the other thing. But then also like on like the queer side of it is that you basically get hit with all these expectations and of ways of just, you know, squishing you back down into that box that they want you to fit into. And the minute you don't fit in that box, and the minute you're thinking outside that box, you're disrespectful, you're offending somebody, you're being too much. And that's where a lot of all of these different layers basically come into play.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because I really, as somebody who's done so much research into like queerness and also like ADHD, I never really put the two and two together of just like, this really does overlap in so many ways that like I wasn't even aware of, like consciously, basically.
No, that would
Yeah,
like
no.
never have occurred to me as things that are connected, but it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And then there are also an estimated 1.2 million people in America who identify as non-binary, gender non-conforming, and yet there's no research that includes them in ADHD.
Well, that tracks.
The only people with
But
ADHD are cis-het men, so I don't know why.
I mean, yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. And
Yeah,
so
I've been fooling you this whole time.
I mean, yeah, so a lot of the times, and then, well, so like in my case, my depression and my anxiety were worse, at its worst, when I wasn't treating my ADHD.
Mhm.
My therapist was just like, you realize that like all of those feelings that you had like throughout your teenage years into your 20s, a lot of that's tied into the fact that you weren't treating your ADHD and you weren't giving yourself the ability to grow into a person that is self-loving but also able to give out that same love without the fear of being rejected, being, you know, shamed for basically just living my best life at this point.
Mhm.
And it's one of those things where like, especially like now, like I'm definitely not going to ever shut up about how I don't want to live in this heteronormative standard where like, yeah, I'm not just going to show up to something in a dress because you think that's what you expect of me, but also like I'm not going to limit my light and glow less to make you feel comfortable. I've been uncomfortable my entire life. You deserve to be a little uncomfortable having this conversation regardless of how it makes you feel, because chances are most queer people and most people with ADHD have already lived in this like shame bubble of how they're not supposed to just accept themselves because they're different, but meanwhile like everyone else is like, you know, going off on their soapboxes being angry about things that shouldn't even matter
Mhm.
in so many ways.
Well, and growth doesn't happen within that comfort zone. I mean, no one's going to develop as a person. And I mean, you know, people that are really resistant to that, like life is not about stagnation. Like
Mm-hmm.
who wants that? Like even the most conservative you know, square Christian person, how boring is life when there's like no variation and it's like Pleasantville and everybody's in black and white. That's just like a fucking miserable way to live.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
And then that's basically how it spreads. And then you get stuck with generational trauma because you're
Mhm.
trying to unlearn all the things that were basically forced onto you
Mhm.
as a kid. And like also like one of the best ways to just be there is to just be supportive and understanding and willing to learn. Like I had to teach my whole family about my ADHD diagnosis, right? Like I had to explain, hey, you know how I used to punch holes in walls? It's because I have a low frustration tolerance. Oh, you know how I can fly off the handle when provoked? It's actually because I have a really high sense of like what justice looks like, and things that I think are unfair, chances are they're probably unfair or at least slightly biased.
Mhm.
But there's just so many layers to that. And the queer community goes through like literally the exact same thing where
Yeah.
if you're not being supportive, then you're way more likely to be depressed, and that leads to terrible places.
Yeah, but continue, as Sarah said last time, after Pride comes Wrath. So welcome to Gay Wrath Month. And, do no harm but
Stay
take no
angry.
shit. Yeah.
Yeah, stay angry, stay upset, because that is the only way people are going to listen. So,
And organize. Definitely use those spaces online. And,
write condescending emails.
Yeah. A good condescending email can go a long way. And thesaurus.com is your friend.
Yeah.
You can... And I mean, honestly, at this point, you could probably use Chat GPT to write a scathing letter to somebody.
Probably could.
A light bulb just went off with Sarah.
I can save so much time.
Oh my God, so much time. So much time.
So yeah, in the meantime, use AI to accomplish your neuroqueer activism goals. That's what I'd say.
Yeah.
That's not what I would say, because I hate AI, but
you're is it Dwight saying that the computer's trying to kill us when he drives in, or no, when Michael drives into the lake and says that computers are trying to kill us? That's you.
Maybe. Might be.
Yeah, because the bar is ankle high.
Bye.
Bye.